Hello, and welcome to Crying in the Book Club, a podcast where three emotional friends talk about comic books that make them emotional. I am Emily, and I am your host, and I am here, as always, with John Luke Botbill. Hello.
Hello, what's up?
And we don't have Alex with us today, unfortunately, but we do have a special guest, and that is my good pal Teese. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. Well, I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I am very excited. I've been wanting to get you on an episode of this podcast at some point, and I feel like it was really only fitting that this was the very episode that we did.
I was talking to a friend of the show, and he was like, I would be insulted if Emily did not invite you to come on for this episode.
Oh,
and I was like, yeah,
110%.
true.
No, there was never any world in which we did this series and I didn't do my best to get you on the episode at all costs.
I think Emily sent a message to our group chat in like October that was like, I'm making you guys read Dungeon Meshi, and also we're gonna have Teresa on.
I'm so glad.
This has been in the works forever.
Especially, I feel like I was really kicked into gear about doing the episode after they announced the anime. So yeah, that I've definitely been excited about this for a while. And yes, this week we are talking about Dungeon Meshi. The official English title for this series is Delicious in Dungeon, but I will not be calling it that, and you can't make me, because I hate it. I don't care that it's supposed to be a cute little D&D joke or whatever. It sounds stupid, and I don't like it.
The reason why it's called Delicious in Dungeon, I believe, is because Ryokuki was like, can we please call it Delicious in Dungeon in English? And I was like, yeah, sure. So blame it on her.
I know. It's one of those things, like, it's like in the Netflix translation of Neon Genesis Evangelion, where they say first children instead of first child. It's like, I understand that, like, I understand that the Japanese speakers have an attachment maybe to a certain way things sound to them, but I feel like it just doesn't work in English. It doesn't work in English here. I don't like the name Delicious in Dungeon, and we're not going to be using it. We are going to call it Dungeon Meshi.
Maybe this is just me being stupid, but I've seen people mention Delicious in Dungeon on Twitter, and my brain had not even connected that's was
really funny.
Dungeon Meshi. I had no idea.
But I don't blame you because I've been consistently just calling it Dungeon Meshi. But the reason that you've seen Delicious in Dungeon is because the Netflix anime that is coming out right now, like, in English, uses Delicious in Dungeon as the title. So
I actually have the like official Adventures Bible with me, and it actually does say like Delicious in Dungeon. And then I have, because I'm insane, this is not the only copy that I have of this. I have two other copies of it, one in Japanese and one in English. And the only reason why I have two in English is because there was like a printing error on the first copy that I bought, and like pages are actually like still stuck together, and like the bleed something weird happened with it, but I like wanted an actual copy that I could use for like other stuff. And on the inside of it, it actually does say Dungeon Meshi Delicious in Dungeon, like even on the Japanese version. And inside of the Japanese version, like here in this one, there's like this print. I'm just like goofing off, but this print is actually, this whole map is a part of like the dust jacket for the Japanese version, and it's labeled like Delicious in Dungeon, and here it even says Delicious in Dungeon. So she's trying so hard, but Delicious in Dungeon's not gonna work. It's just gonna be Dungeon Meshi.
I love you, but Ryokuki, but I'm not saying it. I won't. I just refuse. As I said, Dungeon Meshi, I do have Delicious in Dungeon in the notes because I copied this from Wikipedia. Dungeon Meshi is a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by, how do you pronounce the surname?
A lot. I'm not sure. Some people say Q, some people say Kui, some people say Kui.
I'm gonna say Q this time.
Yeah, I think most people say Q. Yeah.
written and illustrated by Ryoko Q. It was serialized in Interbrain's seinen manga magazine Harta from February 2014 to September 2023. Yen Press has licensed the series in North America. I read the Yen Press release of the manga because I have actually purchased it on Kindle, which God, I'm gonna say it again. The Kindle app sucks so bad for reading comics. It sucks so bad, and I hate it so much. And every day of my life, I miss Comixology, and I'm so mad.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if only Amazon had like the premier digital comic book reader.
If only Amazon.
They had made it. If only they had purchased that, almost a decade ago.
God, it makes me
Unfortunately, they did not do that, so it's impossible to read comics.
Teresa, I don't know if you know, but recently Amazon shuttered the Comixology app entirely and has forced everyone using it to switch over to the Kindle app for reading comics. And the Kindle app is just not made for reading comic books. It's made for reading regular books.
That's
and
kind of diabolical.
It doesn't have as much of the specific functionality that was good for reading comics in a digital format that Comixology did. And
like you would think you'd be able to toggle to like their comics reader versus stupid Jeff Bezos, dumb bitch.
You would think, and yet
the one upside is that it got me completely out of the Amazon ecosystem and onto the American comics publishers like proprietary apps.
I feel that so hard.
An anime television series adaptation of Dungeon Meshi produced by Trigger, the famous anime studio Trigger, premiered in January of 2024. And I have watched the first episode. Teresa, you have watched the first episode. John Luke, I assume you have not.
I issued a fatwa against Trigger like 3 years ago.
I fucking hate Trigger. I hate them.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, me too.
Listen.
John Luke hates Trigger because there was... Teresa, do you know anything about the Star Wars anime compilation or anthology thing that was made? Trigger made a short for that, and it sucks shit and is really bad.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's easily the worst thing that I've seen that Trigger has ever done. My chair is just slowly lowering, and I feel so short.
Also, Bass is sitting in my lap right now, so
amazing.
Yeah, my cat. But yeah, I feel that way about Trigger so much. The thing that's great about them is that they do have really great animation and art style, but their story, just if they have an original story, it just sucks so bad. It's just
they really benefit. They really benefit in this case from the fact that they're adapting a really good story.
Yeah, that makes all the difference, honestly.
But I'll probably talk. I'll bring up the anime a little more later. But getting more into the specific, I tried to do some research. I tried to see if I could find some interviews with Ryoko Q about the background of making this manga, and I couldn't really find very much. I mean, I don't know, maybe if I could read Japanese and could search for Japanese interviews, but I know that she doesn't really speak English, so my resources for trying to find background info on this were kind of limited.
Gotta get a Japanese speaking research intern.
Yeah, right.
I think it also goes to show that a lot of her inspirations are heavily based in modern fantasy setting series that we currently have going on right now. There's this ongoing meme that she's going, now that Dungeon Meshi is over, she's just gonna play Baldur's Gate 3 for months on end.
It is awfully convenient for her that she decided to end her manga right after the release of Baldur's Gate 3.
And I don't think this is a lie. She loves Elden Ring, she loves the Baldur's Gate series. She's a very big, she very much appreciates the aesthetic of European set fantasy. So I think that definitely shows some of her inspiration there for sure. And if you look at her blog, she does a lot of really cool stuff on her blog that's mostly illustrations and stuff.
And, I hadn't checked out her blog. I should do that.
It's I mean, a lot of people just post the sketches from the blog on Twitter and stuff like that. But it is really nice to look at.
Yeah, but I should
It's just
check
fun.
that out. I will
Mhm.
probably do that after we finish recording, honestly.
Yeah.
The basic summary of the plot for Dungeon Meshi, not the whole thing, but just to kind of get us introed. In a fantasy world of dungeon exploration, guilds go out on expeditions to raid dungeons. Many hope to find the mysterious Golden Kingdom, which is said to be the treasure of a certain island dungeon. The story begins as a group of 6 adventurers attempt to slay a dragon. However, they are forced to escape, losing the leader's sister to the dragon's stomach. After this failure, 2 members of the group leave to join another band of adventurers. Feeling indebted to the party member they lost, who used magic to teleport the team outside to safety, the remainder of the team brainstorms how to get back to the dungeon level with the dragon in time to save her from digestion. With the majority of their supplies left behind in the dungeon, their mission seems impossible until their leader suggests that they sustain themselves by finding food inside the dungeon. The story then details their travels through the dungeon, the environments, traps, and monsters they encounter, and the meals they create. Our main characters that we meet, at least in, we read volumes 1 through 4 for this episode, so the characters that we meet here, at least the main ones, are I'm gonna say everyone's name wrong. The thing that I learned watching the English dub of the anime is that I don't know how to say anyone's fucking name, and since I've only watched 1 episode so far, I have not yet been able to make the switch over to how these names are supposedly actually supposed to be pronounced. So just I'm gonna do my best. Lias, a tall man, which is what they call humans, who must venture deep into a dungeon to rescue his sister Phelan before she is digested by the red dragon that defeated his party. Lias is a strong fighter and the leader of the party, but also tactless. He is very calm and gentle. And is excited to try different monster meals. He often uses the knowledge gained from cooking monsters to develop techniques to defeat them. Marcille is a half-elf magician who fights with a magic cast from a wooden staff. She is a cautious person who is usually hesitant and can sometimes be unwilling to eat monsters. She is very skilled at different kinds of magic and often able to perform complicated or high-power skills with little preparation, although her skill is underappreciated by her companions. I guess a Marcille fan wrote this description. She is I mean, it's not untrue, but still, she is an original member of Lias's party. Chilchuck, a half-foot, which is what they call halflings, locksmith with good dexterity and keen senses. Chilchuck disables traps, finds hidden pathways, and pickpockets for the group. He is a sensible person who is often admonished by Lias for his tactless behavior and obsession with monsters, but deep down he truly cares about his companions. He doesn't like it when other people take over his job or take needless risks. He avoids combat as a rule, but can use a bow and arrow. He is an original member of Lias's party. We also have Senshi, a dwarf warrior who joins the party so he can fulfill his dream of cooking the red dragon Lias and his party have set out to kill. Senshi has an immense knowledge of the dungeon and the monsters within it, and is an expert chef. He typically fights with a large axe, but always carries a pot and cooking utensils. He makes sure that the party are well fed and have a balanced diet and keep them going through the dungeon. And Phelan, a Tallman spellcaster and Lias' sister, who was eaten by a red dragon at the bottom of the dungeon after using her magic to teleport the rest of the party to safety. Lias and his party are on a journey to rescue and revive her before the month-long digestion cycle of the dragon ends and she can no longer be resurrected. She has a unique ability to communicate with ghosts and uses it to keep her party safe and remove ghosts possessing corpses. She's a gentle person who shares her brother's love of monsters. She's an original member of Lias' party. So that is Dungeon Meshi. So I'm gonna ask, even though I know the answer to this question, John Luke, had you heard of this before I said we were going to read it?
Nope. I have
Okay.
zero knowledge about it.
Teese, I want to know how you got into Dungeon Meshi because you are the person who recommended, or not necessarily recommended it to me, but was going insane about it, which is tantamount to a recommendation. But I want to know how you ended up like reading and getting into it.
So, my roommate, Lily at the time, who was not my roommate, messaged me on Twitter one day and was like, I really think you should read Dungeon Meshi. I really feel like Lias was designed in a lab and made for you. And that was truly like patient zero moment. I kind of struggled in the beginning to read it. I wasn't that big of a fan. I'm not a high fantasy person, like,
You
at
really
all.
aren't.
I'm not, no. And I just kind of like pushed through, which is why I recommended the first few volumes, because I really feel like the manga itself does not get into its stride like until like chapter 16-ish. So I figured at least like volumes 1 through 4 would be a really nice like encompassing of like the first main arc type deal. And I also thought like it gave a better feel of like the characters and the world building and stuff. So once I like hit chapter 16, it just was all downhill from there. And I enjoy it a lot. And I try to be very normal about it, and I try to respect people's opinions, obviously. But behind this calm exterior, there is somebody with a lot of feelings towards the series. But yeah.
Yeah, I just like started seeing you post about it, and I like fantasy, and I like cooking shows. So I had read before this. I had read like the first volume and a half. I realized
Mhm.
going in that I hadn't. I thought I had read volumes 1 and 2, but I never ended up finishing volume 2, just
Mhm.
because like I had to put it down for some reason and then just forgot to pick it back up.
Mhm.
But I had bought volume 3, so I was gonna keep going. But I really enjoyed the manga, so I was pretty excited when the anime was announced. And yeah, I guess that's us getting into Dungeon Meshi.
Teese, before you go to the next question, Emily, Teese, I have to say I'm really glad to hear that you don't think it hit its stride until issue 16, because I
Mhm.
was really worried that I was gonna have to come on this show and be like, oh my god, it was a struggle session for me to get through like the first like almost 20 issues.
Mhm.
I feel
That's
with you.
totally fair. Yeah, I really struggled, and like I was like this can't be like so conceptually good that people keep talking about it to this way that like it can't possibly not like stay not good. So I'm happy you felt the same way. And like for reference, I don't mind when somebody doesn't like something that I like. So like if you're really like, no, I hated it, I like will be like, oh, okay. But at the end of the day, like it's fine. It's fine.
I,
Everyone's
however,
entitled
will
to their own
continue to
opinion.
threaten your life as is customary, John Luke.
Yeah. Well, the good news is I don't hate it, but
Good, good.
I can't relate. I was totally grabbed from the start, but I'm kind of a little baby sometimes. Like I don't know, like I just find all the characters charming, so I had
You're a
no
fantasy
issue.
enjoyer
Yeah,
too,
I also
so
I am a fantasy enjoyer for sure. So
mhm.
yeah, that I kind of clicked immediately, and then like stuff started getting like really plotty, and I was like, oh hell yeah, like I would have been fine just like goofing off for forever, but this is cool too.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess, but before I go to the next question that I have written down, we could talk about like John Luke. What are your general like overall thoughts? Like, did you like it?
by the end I was really into it. Yeah.
Yay.
The last I assume that it's broken the volumes are broken down into 7 issues each, and I would say the last 7 were
Mhm.
really good. Like basically the whole arc where they actually like set up for and finally fight the dragon, I thought was like really exciting, and when the book like really hit its stride with pacing.
Mhm.
I don't want to dwell too much on the rest, but before that it was really bland. I felt like it was a lot of descriptions of monsters and descriptions of items and stuff that felt, but it wasn't like world building descriptions. Like it felt kind of, all of it felt kind of inconsequential to me, and I had a really hard time grasping like really getting into a character, into
Mhm.
characters. So
I will admit that I definitely don't read every single word on the big pages of
yeah.
food. Even though I do, I love the way that food is illustrated in this manga so much. But like
Mhm.
I can't read all of the words because for the most part I just don't really care that much. I just look at like
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
big headlines, and that's basically
I had a
Surprise.
hard time. Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, go, 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 go.
I was just gonna say I had a hard time with the food at the beginning. I know a lot of people give that vegan alert letterbox account a lot of grief, but like I'm the person who that's for. I don't like seeing like portrayals of meat
Oh,
a lot of the time.
I didn't even think about that before we got
it,
into it.
It eventually started getting fun because I switched tacks and started enjoying it from the perspective of just like, wow, these characters are completely psychotic about this stuff.
Yeah.
And from that angle, there's like a dark humor to it that I enjoyed. I don't know how intentional that is, but it helped me get over some of my reservations about the food. So
one thing I did say to Teese while I was rereading the beginning of this in preparation, that is like one thing I enjoy is that everybody in Dungeon Meshi is kind of a little freak in their own way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What were you gonna say, Teese?
I was gonna say, so as somebody who's actually finished the whole thing, you'd be so like I do agree with what you're saying, Jean-Luc, and I really it's like a lot of heavy lifting at the beginning. Like you really just have to like suck it up and take in all that information. Mm-hmm. And I will say, even I was reading over volume 4 earlier today, and I thought it was like really funny that it was like, my cat is playing with a toy. What I found really funny about volume 4 is that like they're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna build these bones together, we're just gonna make 3 whole skeletons from scratch. I was like, girl, there's no way that was ever that easy. Like, and I think like there's some moments in that where it's like, oh, this is just absolutely not realistic. I mean, not even realistic in the realm of like this fantasy setting. So like there's like some moments in it where I'm like, all right, enough. Like you got too much of an artistic license here. But like what also is really wild about these first few first few volumes and chapters is that a lot of this is excuse me as she runs down the stairs. A lot of these things unfortunately actually come back later in the series. Like I mean, like there's some character foreshadowing for sure in in one of the the chapter with like the paintings and jumping through, and
yeah,
like,
that I know that elf is way more important than you might think.
Volume 4 does end off with him, so
yes,
them. I think Thistle's with them technically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but
literally just didn't know that.
Via fan translation, Thistle's mostly been it's like a general they them to a he sometimes, but also I think it really depends. I won't lie, I read this illegally the whole entire time I read it, but as like Dungeon Meshi's number one idiot,
also read it illegally, so you're fine.
We love to see it, yeah. So like it kind of is like up to the mercy of people who've translated it, but
no, that makes sense. I now that you like even mentioned it, like I can't even think of in the official translation if there were ever pronouns used, because like you see this character so little in the time that in what we read that like you can kind of get away with it not coming up.
Yeah, I think kind of like similar to like Hoseki no Kuni, they just like use the character's name instead of like pronouns. So like there's a lot of things that like finishing Dungeon Meshi. So what happened was after I finished the last chapter, I was like, wow, this was so fucking good. And I've like been reading it consistently as it came out for like 2 years at that point. So how much did I remember? So I just like started from the beginning again. I was like, oh wow, that's there. Oh wow, that's there. Oh wow, that's there. So I think a lot of those things were jammed packed in there because she was just like kind of excited to begin to build progress, but didn't necessarily know how. I think this is actually her first like full published series as well too, if I recall correctly.
Hell of a debut.
I know. I feel like it is. Let me look this up.
While you're doing that, I do think it's funny that you mention issue 14, specifically the painting issue, because that was the first one where I was like, okay, maybe there is something here.
Yes.
Because it was the first time there was a hint at like I don't necessarily need a comic series or a manga series to like be super plot oriented. Like I do like the sort of like, let's just have characters hang out and vibe, but that wasn't fully working for me. So, but as soon as she kicked into gear with the plot stuff there and like building out like the past about the prince and his father, I was like, oh, maybe there's something more going on that just hasn't been elucidated on yet. So that was the first one where I was like, okay.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that all becomes very important later.
I'm not surprised by that.
So I lied. This is her fifth thing that she's published.
Okay.
Okay, wow. But this is by far has been her longest
Okay.
and most successful for sure.
Okay.
She's done like a lot of like one-off anthology series. Like I
Okay.
think in maybe two or three, two of them, and then she's done one series. She did like a short no, she did like something that was 33 chapters, something that was 44 chapters. So this is what, 89. So
Yeah,
this is
okay.
her first like long form series, but still
Okay.
pretty early in her career, I must
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Very cool, very cool. Um, John, what did you think of the art in this book?
I mostly liked it. I
Yeah.
felt like there's a lot of really good visual storytelling with the characters' expressions, and it carries a lot of the weight is carried by like the body language and the facial expressions, because there's so, especially early on, there's so little actual dialogue that isn't like them just like, it's not exposition exactly, but it's not like conversational. It's not as conversational early on. So much of what you get out of the characters is in the visuals, and in that respect, I think it's very successful and does a really good job. And then again, to go back to the last like few issues, the whole dragon sequence I think is a really exciting action scene.
Mhm.
I've often had issues with some of the manga we've read before for this show, of like some of like, even like Berserk, which I loved. I felt like some of the action was a little inert and too reliant on like speed lines, so it was hard to follow. This feels like very like, this is like, the movement is incredible from panel to panel, and the actual like fight scene is really well done, I thought, and exciting.
Mhm.
So I was a fan.
Yeah, T, you've read a lot of manga. Tease, how do you feel about like the art in this?
This is like my bread and butter. I
Yeah.
love like a really style, like for me, when people are like, "Oh, what kind of manga do you like?" I'm always like, "Oh God, you're not gonna like this answer," because I'm a very heavily seinen based reader for sure. And what I really
Fresh
appreciate,
eyes.
yeah, I also read a lot of josei, but definitely way more seinen than josei. And Dungeon Meshi for me, I really appreciate like the line widths and weights of it, and I love like I'm a very big fashion person. I love the costuming. I think like the character details are really important, and like I think a lot of there's a lot of visual, like as John Luke was saying, there's a lot of visual storytelling within these character designs as well. Like I think a really great example is later on the Canaries, who are like the peacekeeper group of these elves. Like some have notches in their ears because they're actually prisoners, some don't because like they're higher up people within, oh, the rain, they're higher up people within like this the peacekeeping group and stuff like that. And I think it's a really fascinating way to like tell these cultures apart of these species of people and stuff. So I really appreciate the overall like character designs and just like the bodies of the characters a lot, but just from like an art style and perspective view, a lot of my favorite series are very much like humanoid characters in situations like 20th Century Boys is a favorite of mine, Golden Kami is a favorite of mine, Doro Hey Doro. So things like that all have very similar art styles and ways. Like it's like this cartoonish realism, and I think Dungeon Meshi definitely fits within that realm of like cartoonish realism for sure for me.
It's weird to say about like something like Dungeon Meshi, which is high fantasy, but
Mm-hmm.
like it does seem like when it comes to manga, you prefer things that are kind of grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like even though this is high fantasy, the art style is very grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't go in some of the like ridiculous ways that manga art styles can go.
Yeah.
I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, not to be like somebody who grew up online in the early 2000s, but like I'm not very much like a shovel face anime girl. Like
Yeah.
I like my I have to say like maybe I guess I should be saying like I definitely like manga that has a little bit more of like a western feel to it in their art styles and writing styles and stuff like that. Like, I know
Yeah.
people love slice of life, but like as an American, I do not like slice of life. Which I know is like a very American thing, but it's the truth. I just don't.
Well, you don't like sitcoms either,
I
and
hate sitcoms.
Slice of Life is
Oh,
the
how another sitcom hater. Let's fucking go.
Slice of
Somebody
Life
who
is
gets
the
it.
anime equivalent of a sitcom, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
that absolutely tracks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the art in Dungeon Meshi. I think that Ryoko Q's art style is just so cute, and I especially my favorite thing that she does is when panels involve characters having to be really small and like having to choose like which details to include in like a little like toony like or simplified version of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that is always a favorite thing of mine in reading manga in general, but that I think that Ryoko Q especially does really well in a way that just brings me a lot of joy when I read it. Like there's so much I like about her art, but in specific, like something that I kept noticing was every time she had to draw a character like really tiny, it was just like, oh, it's so cute. I love it so much. Um, Jean-Luc, how does Dungeon Meshi compare to other manga that we have read for the show?
Uh, it's a good question. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not my favorite of the ones we've done. That's for sure.
Okay.
It's just because I feel like some of the other things that we've read, like I'm thinking of like in particular like Tomie and Alita,
Uh
are
huh.
way more my speed, like genre wise and thematically
Sure.
than this is. Like this is not something that I necessarily like. If I had heard about this without the show, it's not something I necessarily would have sought out on my own, even though I did end up enjoying it. But I don't know, I probably liked it a little more than Witch Hat Atelier. Uh, but I don't know, like it's good, but it's definitely not, the best thing we've read.
Sure.
Um, in terms of fantasy stuff, I definitely much prefer Berserk. But again, like Berserk is way more my speed in terms of like, I mean, it's gonna sound really lame, but like the grittiness of the world and stuff, I like a lot more. So
That's
I,
so funny you say that because I hated Berserk because of that. I was like, why must everything suck? Like, can Guts get a break? And I was like, and why is it so mean? I do want to try it for the third time. I made it 20 chapters last time, and I was like, I just don't know if I can do this.
So you should do what I did, which is the great hack of skipping the entire first part of the story
You're not the first
accidentally.
person who
it
said
was
that.
Jean-Luc accidentally, okay, so I don't know if you know anything about like the numbering of Berserk, but like it doesn't actually start like numbering chapters until like super far in, and there's
Mhm.
like a weird way that like the beginning is numbered. And when I sent Jean-Luc a website to read it on, he just disregarded all of the stuff that wasn't like chapter 1, chapter 2 at the beginning,
Mhm.
and we didn't talk about it at all until it got time to record for the episode. So John Luke didn't come in until like in the like golden what golden era.
A lot of people start at the golden arc. You're not the only one.
Yeah, and that's where the anime is. So like
Mhm.
And then I went back after learning about that as we were recording the show. I went back and read the stuff at the beginning, and I definitely didn't like it as much. But I think like it helped having the context for Berserk, knowing that it does eventually get a little, because I went back and I read it and it absolutely was like, oh my god, this is really grim. And I don't mind that, but it was nice knowing that eventually like there's some stuff that is less grim, so it's like at least within the creator's repertoire to that's not always going to be like beating the shit out of Guts for 20 pages at a time.
Not to be a miserable bitch.
Yeah, yeah.
who was your favorite character, John Luke?
Uh I don't I don't really know. I guess if I had
You have to pick
pick
one.
someone, if I have to pick one, I would probably go with the dwarf guy, his name's in the Google
Senshi?
Doc. I should have just scrolled up and
Senshi.
looked. Senshi, yeah. I really like that the bit where they clean his beard. I thought that was fun.
Oh,
I
did you
think
find that relatable?
a little bit, yeah. Well, I definitely clean my facial hair more often than he seems to. So,
Yeah.
but I feel like he has some of the best bits in the book. Like he's kind of
He's
fun
really
in
precious.
yeah, he's a little aloof about the rest of it too, which I think is enjoyable. And yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed his character the most, I would
I
say.
this probably won't mean anything to you, but he's voiced in the English dub of the anime by Sungwon Cho, who is like
Hmm.
a sort of an internet darling who has been doing anime dub voice acting for the past couple of years, and I think he does a good job, and I'm excited to see him here. So,
Hmm.
Teese, who is your favorite character? I mean, I feel like it's Lias. I feel like that's
It
a
is.
given.
It is. Lies is my favorite. Um, but I just, yeah, he's my favorite. That's about it. That's all I'm gonna say.
My favorite character, at least as far as we have read, I think, is probably Marcel, because I
Huge
am.
shocker.
Yeah, I know this
He
comes as
is
a great shock to everyone involved, but I love a girl failure, and oh, Marcel, she is long suffering, but she tries so hard, and she's just so cute, and she and Phelan are precious, and I love them so much. Uh, so did was there any character that you did not like, John Luke? Was there anyone that you feel like is your least favorite character?
Marcial.
Oh, fuck off.
No, I like I found the shtick of like every issue of her doing the like I don't want to eat that. Oh wait, it's delicious to be a little. It ground on me, but then when they do that flashback to her at the academy or whatever, and it sort of builds on like her relationship with Phelan, I thought that she became more compelling to me after that.
Mm.
That's
Um,
fair,
but I
honestly.
don't know if I necessarily have a least favorite character. I do hate that other dwarf for being a traitorous piece of shit, just following the money. I mean, yeah, I hate you. You can't respect that kind of dishonorable behavior.
Tease, do you have any characters that you don't like in Dungeon Meshi?
I was thinking about it. I'm kind of like whatever towards oh my god, what's his name? The swordsman that was originally in their group. Sugure,
Oh,
I want to say. It's not Shigure.
it's Shuro, I think.
Shuro, yeah.
He like has a thing for Phelan or whatever.
Yeah, I'm like, go away. Like consistently throughout the series. I mean, like, there. I guess he's
I mean, he did,
responsible for
like
some stuff.
literally isn't a part of any of what we read. Basically, like he's at
Yeah,
he's there at the beginning, but like he's not a
yeah,
character in any of what we read. So.
yeah. He pops up like every once in a while throughout the rest of the series, and I'm just like, all right,
Boo.
like there he is. Like I don't really. It is when you like something like this, like I don't hate. I'm not someone who like passionately hates characters. Really, like
Sure.
I'm just like, okay, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like my lowest on like the yeah, okay, whatever side of characters, I guess. So
That makes
him.
sense. Did do either of you have like a favorite monster that they encountered in these first 4 volumes? Because I definitely have an answer to this.
I actually really like. Let me see if there's pictures of them. This is so corny that I'm just like pulling out the fucking.
No, I love
Bible.
it. Thank you.
I actually really love the treasure bugs. I think those are really fun.
Oh, I think they're so cute.
I think like they're so fun as a concept. I really like the idea that you can like make jelly out of them and you can make all these things about them. Also, as I'm flipping through, shout out to Kiki and Kaka, best names in the whole series.
It's so silly.
I forgot that that's what their names is, and when I saw them, I was like, oh, I forgot that.
It's so funny.
But I think the treasure bugs definitely are something that I'd be like, I would like to try you, please.
What about you, John?
The treasure bugs are fun. I do really like the conceit of that issue where the other party finds the treasure and then the main characters like stumble upon them. Like that's like a fun mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Kraken. I mean, it's not like a particularly innovative or different monster, but I like Krakens. I think they're cool. And when it like leaps out of the lake, I think that looks awesome.
Oh yeah.
So I would say the Kraken. I like the what's the I'm completely blanking on what it's called. The deer that's also in that same arc when they're crossing the lake. It has like a Western name too. I should remember it. But
the horse, the Kelpie.
The Kelpie. Yes, that's what it is. It's a horse, not a deer. Yeah, I like that one too. If only because like the Kraken, it actually fights back like in a pretty significant way. I enjoy that about it a great deal. So I like the Kelpie.
My favorite is definitely the living armor. I think that it's so cool that they're like little mollusks and that like the armor is their shells. Like I don't know, like when I got to that chapter, I was just so delighted. I think that that's such like a fun way to explain the idea of like sentient armor or whatever.
There's also nightmares and they're like little clams and stuff like that. Yeah, like they're later in the series, but like they're like on this, I think like they hang out on like the shores type deal, and then people are like, oh, why is everything so bad? Like, why do we keep having nightmares? And it's literally just because like these fuck off clams in the middle of the shore. It rules. I love it.
These clams with bad vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly one of the things that I like most about this series is just like you can tell that Ryoko Q really has like a passion for these fantasy creatures and like getting into like the nitty gritty of like how they work and operate and even like, you know, like what it means to like carve them up and cook them. Like it's really like morbid and weird, but like it's just I also find it really creative and interesting. Like this is a perspective on fantasy creatures that I don't think I've seen in anything else.
If nothing else, for those like first few issues, at least like it's an interesting spin on the Monster of the Week structure. And I like the Monster of the Week structure on its own, but it is kind of cool that it has like this additional twist to it where it comes at it from a different perspective. So I agree with you there, Emily.
And I just love the way, as I mentioned, I love the way that food is illustrated in this. Even if, like, if I were faced with eating some of these things because I also don't eat meat, I would probably think they are very gross. Like, just, like, looking at, like, the way that they're drawn and, like, I don't know, the attention to detail in, like, crafting these dishes to begin with is just, like, I just think it's really cool.
I think food manga as a whole is really underappreciated as a genre. I don't think we like as people like I feel like
everybody goes on about Studio Ghibli food, but Studio Ghibli is not the only people making cool fucking anime food.
And like even like I know a lot of people always like comment on about Food Wars, but like I also really like Waokazako, which is a 4-panel series about this girl who just really enjoys going to restaurants. And it's like based off of like the mangaka's own food journal diaries and stuff like that. And like she talks about like the beers that she loves to drink and stuff like that too. And like there's also she like recommends restaurants and stuff. And I had to review that for Anime News Network like a while back ago when I wrote for them for one season. But I really like that too, and I think like we don't appreciate food manga as much as we should. I think as a genre, I like seeing them.
You're probably right.
I didn't even realize it was a genre of anime of manga. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much. there's I won't start talking about it. I feel like
Oh, in Western comics we have Batman, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and you guys have 10 million different things.
Yeah.
I know, I feel like I probably know the answer to this, at least for John Luke, but, would you eat monsters if you had to? Either of you? Do you think? Like, if you were, like, and John Luke, I am thinking, like, if you were in the position of, like, these adventurers where you don't have any money or resources or whatever, and this is what you have to do or whatever. Not just, like, I don't know, because you want to, I guess.
Yeah. There's eat the monsters. No, I feel like the golems would be like a nice intermediary though. I would eat the vegetables off the back of the golem. I think I'd be fine with that. But I would really prefer
No.
to avoid eating the monsters.
That's fair. I feel like the golem vegetable gardens looked really delicious too.
They were so
I thought
cute.
they were like
They
they
did.
just seemed like really rich and like nutritious. But yeah, I would. Outside of this, I love food. I really love food, so
You try it?
yeah, I'd try it. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty adventurous eater, all things considered.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would try. Yeah.
I would probably struggle with like trying to eat monster meat. But I agree that like the golem vegetables look like when they like reached in and pulled out like a whole like it was like a bushel of carrots or something. That like those look great. And I don't know, but I think that the as I said, the food illustrations in this look so good that it is like partially tempting, but if I had to like look at it and smell it, I would probably remember that, oh, I think meat is gross and I don't want to eat it.
I think I would, if presented with the opportunity, break my veganism to eat dragon meat specifically, just because I think that would be like pretty
Fair.
epic. Like it's just one of those things where like,
I was thinking about dragon meat because, like, I'm a pescatarian, so like there is
mhm.
a little bit of wiggle room when it like I would, you know, like there are some meats that I would probably be able to eat in a dungeon, but like I would. I've eaten alligator that I've
Mhm.
justified as, you know, like
It
being
lives in the
under
water.
the purview of a pescatarian diet. So, like, I feel like dragon is not that different from alligator, all things
I
considered.
also think it's kind of fair. Like, if the thing is going to eat you, I think it's kind of like giving up the game. Like, it's fine to eat it back, you know, if you defeat it in combat.
Sure, and that's why I eat bear.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I know one of the headers for one of the opening like splash pages for one of the chapters is like "eat or be eaten," and
Yeah.
then later on in the series, the last chapter is "to eat is to live" is what the final panel says. Spoilers, whoops. Um,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
So like food and like survival definitely go hand in hand in the series too. And also, like, I just think it'd be a flex to be like, yeah, I ate dragon meat.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. Because like that implies that you or someone you know could slay a dragon.
exactly. Like I feel like I've had a pretty adventurous like dining experience life. Like I've eaten at a 3-star Michelin restaurant before. Like I've eaten some pretty bougie places.
Hmm.
And I always like love to be like, yeah, like there's this and this and it was paired with this and the idea of being like, yeah, I had dragon with this. Like that blow my mind. Like I'd be so delighted by that.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
You can't help but relate to Lias in that respect of the
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be so giddy about it, but the whole like, you know, you got to try these things, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
do
the
appreciate that aspect of the
experience.
character. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it is so goddamn funny that like Lias has clearly been waiting his whole life for this moment. And I was telling Teese this before like a couple of days I was telling Teese this a couple of days ago, but like I'm not saying that Lias like lost them their 3 days of supplies on purpose, but it's awfully convenient for him that they had to resort to doing the thing he's wanted to do the whole time anyway.
Hey, we know that there are things that he's a little devious about some stuff, right? Like he keeps when he keeps the little part of the living armor, like he doesn't tell anyone. Like I could see him scheming and getting up to some machinations to engineer
I'm
the
not
perfect
saying
scenario.
he did it on purpose. I'm saying he might not have tried that hard to make sure that the supplies didn't get.
He saw an opportunity and he seized it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do either of you enjoy cooking?
I love cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like cooking.
I can't cook to save my life. Like I'm trying so hard to learn how to cook, like so hard. The problem is like I have the cooking abilities of like a middle schooler, but I have the palate of like a 70-year-old man who like eats constantly. So I feel like, yes, in theory I like to cook, but like I gotta have the proper like time and space so I could learn what the fuck I'm doing so it doesn't come out bad. Like,
yeah.
So in theory, yes. In practice,
yeah. I mean, cooking is a process, and if you don't have someone like teaching you how to cook as you grow up, that process gets harder and harder to get accustomed to when you have to branch out and do it on your own. I definitely went through that when I moved out on my own for the first time. But
yeah, I loved cooking like as a teenager because like my parents taught me how to cook a lot of stuff, and then the same thing when I moved out on my own, I just like stopped doing it for years, and then it was really just recently that I was like living at home again for a few months and cooking with my mom and my dad again, that I was like, oh yeah, I do really love this. And so like when I moved back out, I like got a place with a big kitchen so that I can actually cook stuff. And I spent like 6 hours in the kitchen yesterday.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you were doing a lot of meal prep.
I love baking especially, but yeah, like cooking in general, I love it. So
that's really cool.
Yeah, I like cooking, but unfortunately, like, sometimes it gets to be food time. Like, the longer it gets into the evening that I haven't, like, started doing something for dinner, the less that I want to do anything for dinner. So, there's definitely, like, a time limit on when I can get cooking versus, like, when I am too hungry to cook and just need to order takeout.
Yeah, that's like if I can wake up early enough on Sunday mornings and like put the football game on and start cooking at like 8 a.m., it's like perfect. But yeah, like I get in really bad habits of like, oh, it's 6:30. I just sent my last work email. Fuck it, I'm going across the street and getting something to eat.
I'm feel that so hard. Yeah,
I'm not making anything.
Yeah, big same. Well, Teese, I know you have finished reading the series, but Jean-Luc, do you think that you will read any more of this?
I might at some point go back to it. If we do more of it on the show, I would like to read more of it.
I would not be opposed to that.
But I will it's one of those things that like I have put it on my list of things to go back to, but that list of comics is extremely long. Sure. And I know we have some things planned for this show in particular for this year that are going to take up a lot of comic book reading time. So I don't know when I'll get to it, but I would like to at some point, to especially because like I feel like I was like just getting into it and then put it down. So I think, you know, it might be a couple years, but yes, I think at some point I will return to Dungeon Meshi.
Yeah, I literally had to like resist the urge to just go on and read like the next volume right after I finished volume 4. So I'm definitely going to keep reading. And also, as I mentioned, the anime has come out. I watched it. Teese has watched it. Jean-Luc, do you have any interest in the anime?
No, I hate Studio Trigger. I will never watch another Studio Trigger project.
That's fine.
I watched Edge Runners by accident, and then Chad told me it was a Studio Trigger thing, and I was so mad.
That's
that I
really
watched the
funny.
whole thing last year.
Oh, you watched all of Edge Runners? I still haven't even
Yes,
finished it.
I finished Edge Runners, and I only like 2 days ago when I tweeted about hating Studio Trigger, and Chad told me that they did Edge Runners. I was like,
I
what
forgot
the
that they did Edge
fuck?
Runners. That's really funny. Tease, as a noted Studio Trigger hater, how did you feel about the first episode of the because only the first episode has come out so far, but how did you feel about the first episode of the anime?
So when the series is announced, I was like, it's so over.
Very afraid.
It's so over. So it, like, not to be nitpicky, but I think like Marciel's too round. Like her face is like so soft and round in the anime, which I'm like, why? Like, don't make her like, I feel like they're trying to infantilize her.
Trying to mollify her.
Yeah, more like the way that they're drawing like the spreads of her and stuff like that. I'm like, girl, get off the floor. That's not you.
Yeah.
But for the actual series itself, like you said earlier, I really think the animation and the writing is really combining here to do something good. I hate how deep Lias's voice is. I wish it was a little bit higher, but that's just
Yeah, he didn't really sound
but
how I expected him to sound either.
yeah, just like not as deep, like not as bass.
Did you watch the dub or
the sub? I watched
Okay,
the
okay.
sub.
I'll have to check out the sub too.
mean.
No,
Yeah, I was
I know
thinking
you're
about
not
watching the
normally
dub too.
I know you're not normally a dub watcher. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I was, and it's funny that you say that because I was also like, oh, maybe I should watch the dub too, and then this week at work has been insane.
I think the dub is good. But I also think that like the English dub actor for Elias was a little bit deeper than I was expecting him to sound. I don't think he sounds bad, just
yeah, and I feel that way about the sub, like the Japanese original voice actor as well too.
The dub voice actress for Marcel is actually Nami from the live action Netflix One Piece, which I think is cool. And I watched One Piece live action and enjoyed it quite a bit, so I was excited to see her here as well.
Nice.
And as I mentioned, Sungwon Cho voices Senshi. I don't know who voices Chillshock.
Oh, I think it's Casey. What's their name?
Who was Senshi or Senshi? What am I talking about? Shinji
and GE.
Yeah, the new Shinji.
The new Shinji. I think it's them. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's them.
Okay.
Because my roommate and I were looking at this literally earlier this week. I all things considered, I wasn't optimistic when it was announced, but I was quite satisfied with it when I watched it. What about you?
I liked it a lot, especially I had read the exact chapters that the first episode covers, like right before watching the first episode, so I got to really have like that one-to-one comparison, and I was kind of shocked at how one-to-one the adaptation of the chapters was to the episode, like down to like the like staging of certain scenes and stuff. And yeah, I too, because of Studio Trigger, I was worried about the way that Marcel was going to be animated, but I thought the show itself was fine. I agree that I don't like that promo art of her on the ground. I think it looks dumb, but like as far as the episode goes, they were remarkably restrained, and I hope that maintains through.
I hope it's a trend.
The rest of the anime. Because as you said earlier, like Studio Trigger does employ some really talented animators. It's just sometimes they use those powers for things that are awful to behold.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about it. New episodes of this are going to be coming out weekly, which I think is very cool for a Netflix thing, because they are so still attached to the dumping a whole season at once binge model. But I'm excited that this is John Luke. I don't know if you know these episodes are being released like at the same time that they are in Japan as they are in the US, which is uncommon for anime. And I think that's neat. If we are done with that, John Luke, do you hear that sound?
I do.
That sound.
What is it?
It's the Doomsday Clock. This is signaling. It's a new segment that we've never done before in any of our previous episodes. We're introducing it now, and it's
Teese, just so you know, this is a bit. I'm against the.
Are you doing this to me on purpose?
Yeah, you were warned ahead of time to have something prepared for the cry space, but it is a bit that this is the new thing that we're doing every episode.
Thank God.
But this is our cry space where we talk about something that made us cry in the time between this episode and the last episode. Teese, as the guest, I suppose you have the option of going first or last.
Sure, I can go first.
Great.
I am a champion crier at literally everything. I've cried at so many things in my life that are so minimal and so massive. But today's cry was I got a really nice text from a friend and it made me cry.
Aww.
So that's my.
I like that.
Thank you, I guess.
John Luke, what's something that made you cry recently?
Well, that was very heartfelt, and mine is very lame. But so some people may be familiar with the Lego collectible minifigure series, which is their blind bag series. Mm-hmm. And I waited. Well, first of all, they changed the packaging. They used to be in like these vinyl bags, so you can kind of like feel them and figure out which ones they were. They started putting them in these like little boxes, so you can't tell anymore. And they released a series of Marvel ones last year, Marvel Comics ones last year, and I waited and waited and waited for them to go on sale. Finally, they go on sale. I ordered a bunch of them, and despite the fact that there are two different Hawkeyes, both Kate Bishop and the other one, whose name I'm Clint Barton.
Clint Barton.
Clint Barton. I'm a huge Clint Barton head, but he is forgettable in some ways.
I don't read comics. So we're even.
I got 0 Hawkeyes, and I was really bummed about it. Because now I have to go to the aftermarket and buy the Hawkeye minifigures, which I was really hoping to avoid. That made me kind of sad today.
My cry space, I thought about doing like when Alex's cat died and just like bringing everyone down by making my cry space that my girlfriend dumped me last week. But instead, what I'm actually going to do is I have sort of a funny cry space, which is that I was peer pressured into watching the Amazon Prime Jack Reacher television series, and I enjoyed the first episode, and I don't know how to feel about that.
I'm just shocked that you have a friend out there somewhere who would, like, somehow you have selected somebody to be in your social group that watched and enjoyed Jack Reacher enough to peer pressure you into watching it, and that is just shocking to me.
It is a friend and his wife watched the Reacher television show and were so engrossed in it that they spent like an hour pitching me on this show, and I was like, well, I guess I can watch the first episode, and it turns out actually I enjoyed that first episode, and I don't know what to do with that information. He's like Sherlock Holmes, but if Sherlock Holmes was like less annoying and could also like take out an entire group of people trying to kill him at once.
You hear yourself, right?
I know, I understand, but I don't know. That's why it's my cry space, is because like I don't know what to do with this.
This is like a show that like my sister put on for my grandpa last Christmas, and like he was like riveted in front of the TV. Like, so now like there are two people in my life who love Jack Reacher, and it's my 77-year-old grandfather and you, which is maybe the only thing the two of you have in common.
Almost definitely. Yeah, I don't know. The actor who plays Jack Reacher, you probably never watched Smallville, John Luke, but he was Aquaman.
I've watched Smallville.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't
I've
think
never
you watched.
finished it, but I've watched a couple seasons of Smallville.
He played Aquaman in Smallville. I didn't really watch enough Smallville to get that into it,
Me neither.
but also I don't know. Just he's just this gigantic muscle man, and I don't understand how he manages to be compelling, but he is, and it's upsetting to me, frankly, that I enjoyed the first. And also, Guillermo from What We Do in the Shadows was in the first episode a little bit, so I was excited about that. But yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah, that's why I'm upset is that I liked the conservative wet dream television show. But
And they said conservatives can't make good art.
Well, I mean, I don't think the people making this show are the conservatives, TBH. But anyway, I mean, I guess the more important people involved in the production definitely are, because that's just how showbiz works, baby. But that brings us to the end of our episode, so I guess it's time to do the plugs for the things. If you would like to follow us on the internet, you can do that at Crying Book Club. You should rate and review us 5 stars on your podcast platform of choice. John Luke can be found on Twitter at Mountain Dew Liker or on Letterboxd at JL Botville. Alex, who is not here, can be found on Twitter at Alex Hansiak. I can be found on Twitter at MPandanata, Letterboxd, and Twitch at Pandabore. And the following podcasts: Imagine Me and Yuchina, The Fresh Podcast Market with Teese, and That Looks Terrible. Teresa can be found on Twitter at Vicuña and also on the podcast, The Fresh Podcast Market. Teese, is there anywhere else that you can be found or anything else that you would like to plug?
Should I give my Letterboxd too?
You can, yeah.
My Letterboxd is similar to Vicuña. Instead, it's Vicuñas.
Ooh, like your Neopets account.
Yes, it is. They go hand in hand. That is my mark. That's my title.
Yeah, I feel your Neopets account and your Letterboxd account holding hands is really like that's like the distilled essence of Teese.
My Instagram is also a part of that collective as well too. Like my social media as a whole, what has been like those two words rooted collectively.
There's either an S or a D.
Yeah, essentially, if the S was taken, I took the D, and if the D was taken, I took the S, kind of thing.
But that's been our show. I don't know that we have actually picked what we're reading next time, so you'll find.
I think that's true.
I think you'll find out, listeners, whenever that episode pops up in your feed. Thank you for joining us, Teresa. This was so fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
This was delightful. Anytime.
Excellent. And if we end up doing more Dungeon Meshi, we'll have to have you back.
Gladly.